This is my diversity field experience. For this experience, I interviewed 5 different people that are currently working through various mental health issues. 2 people have generalized anxiety disorder, 1 person has ADHD and is dyslexic, 1 person has major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and ADHD, and the last person has depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar, borderline personality disorder, and an eating disorder. Most of these interviews were done at the local coffee shop, while one of them was done at a restaurant in town. Each one lasted for about an hour and a half. We had 2 different interviews per person. The first was a sit-down interview, and the second was just a low-key hangout and talk. So the questions that I asked were, how would you describe your school and work experience? How old were you when you were diagnosed? What do you wish others knew about mental illnesses? How could your school experience have been better? What characteristics should a good teacher have? Was there something that made learning more difficult for you? And is there something you wish people would understand about you? To start off, I want to talk a little bit about definitions. So, anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent event or something with uncertain outcome. Anxiety disorder involves more than temporary worry or fear. For a person with an anxiety disorder, the anxiety does not go away and can get worse over time. Generalized anxiety disorder is excess worry for at least 6 months. It's difficult to control the worry, and it causes distress in different areas in their life, and this is not explained by a different disorder. So some characteristics. Some physiological symptoms are muscle tension, heart palpitations, sweating, dizziness or shortness of breath. And some emotional symptoms, restlessness, a sense of impending doom, fear of dying, fear of embarrassment or humiliation, or fear of something terrible happening. Depression, on the other hand, is a mood disorder that causes a persistent feeling of sadness and loss of interest. It can lead to a variety of emotional and physical problems. It's also called major depressive disorder or clinical depression. So characteristics and symptoms of depression are feeling of sadness, emptiness, and hopelessness, loss of interest and sleep disturbances, changes in appetite, unexplained physical problems, and trouble thinking and concentrating. Post-traumatic stress disorder is a disorder that develops in some people who have experienced a shocking, scary, or dangerous event. Characteristics include feeling stressed or afraid even when things are okay, night sweats, and constantly feeling afraid. In order to be diagnosed with PTSD, they need to be having symptoms for at least 1 full month. Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, or ADHD, is a chronic condition marked by persistent inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. 3 basic types: inattentive, hyperactivity, impulsive, and the combined type, which include all 3. So the results of my experience are: person number 1 is a person with generalized anxiety disorder. She was 9 years old when she was diagnosed with anxiety, which she thinks it was partially because she was forced to be a perfect child at home. She had a somewhat difficult time with school and is having a somewhat difficult time with work. Every day was and is completely different. There's a lot of peer pressure everywhere, which makes the anxiety worse. She was constantly nervous about what people thought about her. She wished that others would understand that it isn't a choice to have a mental health issue. People wouldn't worry if they had a choice, it's just something that always happens. Regarding her school experience, it could have been better by adding self-affirmation and coping skills at a younger age, as well as being on a personal level with your teachers. This would help you grow confident speaking to your teachers about what you are going through. The most difficult thing in school for her was teachers calling on the spot and then not knowing her name. Person number 2 is a person with depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar/borderline personality disorder, and then an eating disorder. She started having problems at around age 16, but was officially diagnosed at age 20. Her experience was very different due to having to take time off for her mental health. There was a lack of awareness about mental health, so no one had compassion for her. Nobody understood what was actually happening in her life. She wished that people would understand that they aren't trying to scare you away. People are just struggling. Things could have been better if she would have known that there was a support group out there to support her. It seemed like nobody cared about her, which could have been changed if that knowledge was out there. She fought to leave class every day due to her anxiety and depression, which was incredibly hard to keep her grades up. She also fought the urge to cut every day, which she still deals with to this day. She wishes that people would understand that it takes a long time to recoup from a breakdown. Person number 3 is someone who has ADHD and is dyslexic. He was in 3rd grade when they found out he had dyslexia and was in 4th grade when they found out about the ADHD. His work experience isn't too bad since he works on a farm, but his school experience, on the other hand, was tough. He had trouble reading and writing, and it was difficult to keep words and letters straight. He wishes that people would understand that it's not something that we can change, and that they always try their hardest to impress others. It's hard to focus on everything in life, which makes everything extremely difficult. The most difficult thing for him in school was not getting the help he needed to succeed in his school life. He would see things wrong and just get stuck aside, then he wouldn't be able to focus. He wants people to realize that it's something that he will be dealing with for the rest of his life. Person number 4 has generalized anxiety disorder. This person was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder at the age of 17, but struggled with it since an unknown age. Her school and work experience is manageable, but can be overwhelming at times. Overall, it doesn't hinder her from getting her work done. She wants everyone to know that everybody deals with their illness differently. Don't assume that everyone with anxiety or depression goes through the exact same thing. Her school experience could have been better if mental illness was openly talked about and not such a taboo thing. The thing that made learning more difficult was when teachers would assign more than one assignment at once. She wishes that people would understand that she's not broken. She may need to take time to calm down, but she's not broken. And person number 5 has major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, and ADHD. She was in 8th grade when she was officially diagnosed, but coming from a family of psych majors, they knew something was wrong right away. School got harder for her around the age of 10, and it just went downhill from there. She wants others to know that mental illnesses are different, even those with the same diagnosis are different. Telling someone to be happy or keep calm never works. Looking back, she doesn't think that anything could have been different. Her experience shaped who she is today. Having ADHD made it extremely difficult for her to focus, and she was always distracted, which altogether made it hard to learn. She wishes that people would understand that she is more than her mental health diagnosis. So this is a quote from person number 5 that I thought was extremely nice and I wanted to share. Once I hit 4th grade, around age 10, school started getting harder for me. I was unable to focus in class, I didn't want to be there at all, and my grades were slipping. I spent most of elementary and middle school either in detention or the nurse's office. I'd make up excuses so I wouldn't have to go to class. It got so bad in 8th grade that I had felt like everyone hated me, not only at school, but at home too, and I became suicidal. I switched schools in February and things started getting better. I was hospitalized shortly after switching schools for attempting suicide. I began cutting myself regularly because that was the only thing that stopped the pain. My grades started improving, and in 10th grade I was inducted into National Honor Society. But shortly after that I was hospitalized again for cutting. I graduated 3rd in my high school class and started college right after high school. Having a mental illness at such a young age has been really hard, and I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. I am proud to say that I have been accepted into St. Cloud State University to finish my bachelor's degree and doing very well at my part-time job at a group home. I thought this was very interesting and stood out to me because those with mental illnesses are more than their diagnosis. Even though they may struggle, they exceed tremendously in their life. So some overall ideas that I got from this. Mental illness is something that is not chosen. It's something that struggled with for their whole life. Everybody handles their diagnosis differently. Their teachers could have helped them by being on a personal level and talking about mental health sooner in life. Teaching self-affirmation and coping skills earlier in school could have helped them. They can be triggered at any moment. Even the smallest things can be a trigger. And we are always walking on eggshells, which is something that I thought was very interesting because it is a feeling of always walking on eggshells and being careful to not trigger yourself. So, one of the questions I asked was, what characteristics should a good teacher have? Here are some of my results. Caring, compassionate, accepting of differences, teaching life skills and how to deal with emotions, be patient and aware of your students. If you sense something is up, just ask. Be willing to help their students reach their full potential. Sit down with students and see what the best way for them to learn is. Be willing to change the way they teach to see their students learn and succeed. Be open-minded, unbiased, understanding, and have a personal connection with students and genuinely care about them. So some takeaways that I've got from this. No one diagnosis is the same. Just because student A and student B both have anxiety doesn't mean they will both handle their anxiety the same way. A good teacher doesn't need to be on a personal level with their students, which does make it easier for students to talk to them. A teacher never knows what's going on with their students until they get to know them and try to help. If a student has ADHD or has trouble concentrating, try getting creative to help them reach their full potential. Even if that means taking a quick jumping jack break in class, that'll help them to focus more later on. And then here are my sources. Thank you.